Happy Friday on Golic and Golic. The Miami Hurricanes become the first team to punch their ticket to the national championship. After a dominant team effort to outlast an Ole Miss comeback, can the Canes capture their first title since 2001 in their own building? Coming up as we wait for the other side of this weekend, wildcard weekend finally here. We're going to take a look at two NFC rematches and see if we think either team can rewrite regular season history as one of the best weekends in the sport comes calling. And when we have the best, we need to talk to the best. TJ Watt going to join us after a whirlwind last month to talk about recovering from his lung injury, Mike Tomlin's future in Pittsburgh, and how they go about taking down the Texans on Monday night. As we welcome you in, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., alongside TJ Watt. Tom Thayer going to join us, talk a little Bears, Josh Pate, a little college football as we put a bow on the Fiesta Bowl and look ahead to Peach. And our buddy Stormy Buonantony probably going to talk about the Pop-Tarts gift pack that she received and nothing else, which I can't wait for. But Dad, last night, man, we had an instant classic in college football. The Fiesta Bowl between a Miami team looking to capitalize on their entry to the tournament, the Ole Miss team led by Trinidad Chambliss, who in the waning moments of this game did everything he could to give the Rebs a chance to win it. But it was a scramble run by the journeyman Carson Beck. One-time Georgia quarterback turned one-year Cane makes his one big mark on this team as they now head back to the national championship here with a fiery Mario Cristobal on the sideline here. Don't mind the pass interference behind the mirrors. I'm sure Canes fans willing to be on the other side of a controversial pass interference call for once in their storied postseason history. Dad, this game overall was spectacular. So much to like and appreciate about both teams. But to the victor goes the first part of this conversation. Why are the Miami Hurricanes the team that will now have their chance at the national title?
Well, I mean, this was a complete reversal of what we thought was going to happen. Remember, we had David Pollock on, and he said Miami's going to be Mike Tyson. Ole Miss is going to be Floyd Mayweather. Quick, run a lot of plays, try and wear you down, while Miami's going to try and out-punch you. It was completely the opposite. We thought this Miami defensive line would be all over Chambliss. They had 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Ole Miss had 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. They were the ones playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And as far as plays, we thought Ole Miss would have 85 to 90 plays. Miami had 88 plays in this game. Mississippi had 60. Miami had the ball for over 41 minutes in this game. Ole Miss had it for over 18 minutes. Completely reversed of what we thought, but still a great game. 17-16 going into the fourth quarter. 4 lead changes in the last 5 minutes, a 25-point fourth quarter. It was just Miami made more big plays, right? More big plays. Tony on the quick slant pass, getting the O-line in front of him. He breaks it for a touchdown. Carson Beck on the touchdown run. You got trips left. Ole Miss is in man coverage. Every receiver goes to the right. They were going to flood the right side of the end zone trying to get a touchdown pass. All of a sudden, Carson Beck escapes to the left and goes, hell, nobody's here. I know nobody's getting close to touching me, so I'll just scamper on in for the go-ahead touchdown. What an incredible game this was.
Yeah, to me, though, I still think there are elements of what David said that are right. Like, Miami did all that because they were stubborn with the run. I had to double and triple check to make sure that this was right. Miami rushed the ball 51 times last night. And normally that's skewed for the winning team when you've got a lead and you're trying to grind it out. But Miami had to drive to win this in the final 2 minutes of this game. But that was their stubborn adherence. That's their game plan. It's Miami's path to victory right now is Carson Beck, we are going to count on you to make timely plays. And credit to Carson, who at times has been talked about as maybe a limiting factor for this team in certain areas as a passer. He stepped up in that final drive and made some big-time throws to get them down in range before he was able to punch that in there. But this is Mark Fletcher and that offensive line. It's the bald fist that Mario came down here to create in his likeness, both as a player at Miami and what he was as a head coach at Oregon and what he's tried to build down here in Miami. You saw an Ole Miss defensive front that had plenty of size, that was led by Pete Golding, who's now their head coach, gasping for air. I mean, Dad, a defensive tackle on the ground just refusing to get up on that final play where Carson Beck scampers in, because I'm sure he was sucking wind with how much they were able to monopolize the football. There are still things you've got to worry about with this Miami team. Shannon Dawson, their offensive coordinator, getting too cute with stuff like that flea flicker, the penalties for this team that help lead to part of this. I mean, if you look at if you want to just like simple it down to like things people will see on the box score and reasons this game were close, Miami was highly penalized and turned the football over, going down and driving for a potential other score. That's how Ole Miss was able to stay in this game. That and the continued heroics of Trinidad Chambliss, who it was announced today, unfortunately denied his waiver for another season, as that process, I'm sure, will get into appeals and things of that nature.
Yeah, 10 penalties for Miami. I believe only 4 for Ole Miss. And talk about, you can try and be in the best football shape of your life, but when the opponent, and that touchdown drive where we said the D lineman was just sitting on the ground, that was a 15-play, 75-yard drive. Miami had 4 drives of 13 or more plays, 2 13-yard drives or 13-play drives, and 2 15-play drives, including the go-ahead touchdown. That is just so long, and as a former defensive player, I can speak to this, of just hands on hips, doubled over, tired, legs kind of leaving you, not being able to get a pass rush, not being able to get off a block to stop a run, because Miami just comes at you. And you're right, to the point where David Pollock was right, just pounding you and pounding you and pounding you. But really, an incredible game. But let's get the ending over with. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear about the pass interference. I don't want the amount of big deal that was made on other shows already this morning. Everybody knows a Hail Mary is basically a free-for-all. Was there pass interference? Hell yeah. Both the offensive and defensive guy were pushing on one another, but the defender clearly was pulling him down without question. But it doesn't get called. Don't expect it to get called. Don't put yourself in that situation where you're hoping for a call. When you have 6 players, at least 3 offense, 3 defense, all going to jump for a ball, there's not going to be a call. Never has been a call, or if there has, it's been unbelievably rare. So let's just throw that one out. And Ole Miss, don't beg for that one. Even the coach afterward was like, listen, the game didn't come down to that. So that's inconsequential. So I don't even want to have to discuss that anymore.
It's not inconsequential. Like, it had happened. I understand it doesn't get called in those situations. And listen, if you're a Miami fan, you can't really say much right now, considering how much time you spent over the last 2 decades complaining about a non-call on a pass interference towards the end of a big game in a similar circumstance. So I think you just kind of got to let them have it on this one. But listen, this Miami team, their whole charge and what they've done since the 2 losses earlier this season is make football remarkably simple. It's why I got worried, Dad. Like, if they were going to ruin their chances at this game, it's because they felt the need to deviate. It was what they did so well against Ohio State offensively, right? It was go out there and just do the simple stuff. Run the ball, screen pass to Tony, screen pass to CJ Daniels, lather, rinse, repeat. Occasionally you'll have to throw Carson Beck out there for a drop back play. When you started to mix the cute stuff in there, that's when the trouble started. And that'll be the interesting test for them going up against whoever they face coming out of the other side of the bracket in this game. From the Ole Miss standpoint here, you mentioned what they were able to do defensively versus what it looks like on paper Miami was able to do defensively. They went back and watched the Miami SMU game, is my guess. Kevin Jennings and SMU, Rhett Lashley's group said, we're going to run tempo and get the ball out of our quarterback's hands quick so that we don't give your star pass rushers a ton of chances to get home here. And Miami tried a bunch of different ways to try and make that happen. Credit to Trinidad Chambliss, like he did against Georgia. When it came to the second half of this game, the guy was seeing 0s and 1s in the matrix and was able to get the ball on time. Now, the other part of this is Miami defensively really has no one to blame but themselves. I counted 4 dropped interceptions, and not like he just got a hand on it type. Like, looking the ball in could have been 6 to the house on 2 of them and could have at the very least stopped a couple of Ole Miss drives on the other one. So this defensive secondary was in position to make plenty of plays. credit Corey Heatherman for that much, but they just didn't make them and allowed Ole Miss a chance to stay in this game. I give credit to Ole Miss for the fight, for the playmaking and all that. But Miami, between the penalties and the cute stuff on offense and the lack of converting those plays on defense, really allowed Ole Miss to hang around as long as they did and have a chance to win that.
Completely agree. They were the better team. Miami was definitely the better team, and at some point I thought they were going to pull away. But to your point and the points you made, Ole Miss was able to stay in it. Again, a 1-point game after 3, and then an explosive fourth quarter. So the Ole Miss story ends with the coaching situation, and as you mentioned, Trinidad Chambliss lost his bid. Now they can appeal, so we'll see where that goes. So Chambliss will add it. If not, he'll have his name in the NFL draft as well. He's a little on the smaller side. Certainly, we've seen him escape and make some big plays. So if he doesn't win his appeal, we'll have time to talk about him in the NFL draft. But how about Miami? No matter who they play, they're playing home. They're going home. So it's kudos to them. Listen, they have earned this. They had the little slip up, obviously, during the season. Started out the season strong, slipped up a little bit, but you talk about peaking at the right time. They are absolutely doing that.
Yep, and then now they get to wait and watch to see who they're going to face upcoming tonight in the Peach Bowl. You see the resumes laid out here. Miami, who already has punched their ticket, and the home game aspect of it fascinating. And really, regardless of who they face, on one side, you'd have Indiana, where Fernando Mendoza, I believe, went to the same high school as Mario Cristobal in Miami, is from there, would be coming back home himself as the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Or on the other side, the Oregon team that Mario Cristobal used to coach that could not get over the hump in that same way that it looked like at the beginning of his tenure at Miami may not happen because of all those mistakes. And I think that's the other part of this, right? If you're looking at Mario Cristobal, his growth throughout all this, the willingness to be a little bit more aggressive on certain third downs, the willingness or fourth downs, the willingness to lean into his identity, to get away from some of the game mismanagement issues that plagued him earlier in his time in Miami, to put those in his rearview mirror, but mostly able to do it because might makes right, because you decided, yes, I still believe that no matter the day and age in football, the lines of scrimmage are where we're going to win these games, and that's proven true for them through this so far.
But weren't you waiting on that last drive as the clock's running and they're trying to run the clock down and score a touchdown? Again, a field goal would have tied, but a touchdown put them ahead. Weren't you kind of in the back of your mind wondering if Cristobal was going to have another end of the game kind of mess up timing-wise? I know I was.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the thing that's in the back of everyone's mind right now, and it's been the burden of proof for Mario and this team to go out and prove wrong. It's the same for his quarterback, Carson Beck, who we heard about a lot during the broadcast last night, of the nature of how he left Georgia, injured, maybe not as wanted by that staff or fan base at that point, getting the opportunity to come over here. And it's by no means been perfect for him. There were plenty of instances last night where there were poor throws in different situations that could have made this game a lot easier, but there were also important, well-made throws in critical moments of that game. And so are either of them perfect? No, but have both of them been exactly what this team has needed them to be when they've needed to? Yes, in a lot of critical moments so far, that's been the case.
And special shout out Malachi Toney, the freshman, right? I know Keelan Marion had the 7 receptions for 114 yards and a touchdown,
dude.
But Toney was taking coverage away. How we talked about Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State when he was a true freshman and deserved every word of it. He was phenomenal. What Malachi Toney has done, had 99 receptions on the year for almost 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns as a freshman. And by the way, he reclassified. Dude should have been a senior in high school. That's what we were talking about with Cooper Flagg reclassifying for his 1 year in college. His 1 year in college, he still should have been a senior in high school. Toney should have been a senior in high school. It was 17 when he played against Notre Dame to open the season. Dude is unbelievable. What a talent.
Yeah, impressive. One of the ultimate rule of cool almost catches on the sideline where it went toe heel and ultimately got reversed. But the fact that it was even in range was completely ridiculous. And speaking of in range, Ole Miss has a lot to be proud of from this run.
Yeah.
Pete Golding and the way he held this group down was incredible. We talked a lot about Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey, who had the major 70-yard touchdown run to start the scoring for Ole Miss, dealt with a hamstring injury, came back out and gutted that out in the second half of this game. But one time for Lucas Carnero, the kicker.
Yes.
What a leg on this dude. A 58-yard, his career long came in this game, multiple 50-plus yards attempts, and including two that doinked off the upright. One from 51 yards that hit off the upright and was a miss. The other, I believe, from 54. Maybe I have those reversed. But either way, doinked off the upright and then went in on that one. And again, no one moment wins or loses the game. You can go back and say, man, if he'd have just made the 50-plus yard field goal that he was already making look far too easy.
Yeah.
Like NFL scouts got to be salivating at the leg on this dude. But what an incredible tour de force. Too many field goals they had to settle for. But, man, you can see why they felt so comfortable putting him out there and letting him go to work.
His 58-yarder went into the net. I mean, you're right. NFL scouts will be salivating over him. One quick question before we go to break. How soon do you think before Charlie Weiss Jr. gets a chance to be a head coach? He's 32 years old.
Man. If it's not someone taking a flyer this year, we just might be too late in the process. I have a feeling next year that is going to come calling for him. Potentially even NFL opportunities, who knows? But Charlie Weiss Jr., definitely one of the other guys that made himself some money during this playoff run. We got plenty more money to make around here talking about college football. So let's get to it. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, and how they approach this rematch with the Oregon Ducks going into tonight's game. And I guess I open at the close, the bizarre finish to the Damon Williams situation that was bizarre every which way. Next on Golic and Golic. Welcome back to Golic and Golic. As we come back, we get to celebrate a man who's back like he never left, because technically, I don't think he did. The saga of Damon Williams, the Washington Huskies quarterback, has finally come to a dramatic conclusion, as yesterday, Damon Williams announced in the lead up to the bowl game we watched last night that he will return to Washington in 2026, saying, I am fully committed and focused on contributing to what we are building. Interesting choice of words. As we know, he had signed a contract last week, coming back to Washington, supposedly at a very high market value, around $4 million. Then apparently LSU, reportedly the team that came calling with an offer, maybe approaching $6 million. He enters the portal and the rest is history. Dad, this feels like one of the first wins for the establishment, for the schools, for the conferences in this new age of player movement.
I mean, and this should be a simple win. One high-ranking college football official summed it up best. He said, this is a very bright line. Are we going to respect each other's contracts? This is a simple thing. If we can't protect this, nothing else matters. It's so true. And I know coaches sign a deal and maybe a year or two later they're gone somewhere else. But this is literally signing a contract and then literally trying to go back on it and go somewhere else. I mean, if you couldn't protect this one, this official is right. I mean, everything else would be lost. And on the other side of this, LSU's still without a quarterback, right?
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see how they respond to this, but I'm sure the rest of college football at large, because the contract itself was something that worked off a template provided by the Big Ten. And according to Ross Dellinger, he said if Williams or his new school, if he had left, Williams or his new school would have owed Washington the value of his contract, sources told Yahoo, and his new school could have also incurred a reduction in the revenue share pool next year by that amount, according to the House settlement guidelines here. So the Big Ten, their contract language, everyone lawyering up, trying to just make sure that they're holding on for dear life in an era where the lines still aren't totally clearly defined, but in this case, we may have found the bumpers in the bowling lane for now. So Damon Williams coming back to Washington, going to try and compete in a hyper-competitive Big Ten as we go to the other matchup in the semifinals. A new world where, once again, the SEC for the third straight year won't have a representative in the College Football Playoff National Championship. That's a conversation we can get to with Josh Pate when he joins us in a little bit. But, Dad, we got a rematch of a regular season tilt where Indiana went on the road to Eugene and got one of the wins that really started to earn them that that respect nationally coming off a season last year where they have been great but fallen short in the big moments here. Do you see anything differently between these two teams now that lends you to think there could be a different result tonight?
Well, so I'm going to ask you a question after I talk about a couple of things. A lot of maybe more pressure on Noah Whittingham, the running back for Oregon, as his running mate Jordan Davison is out for this game. They shared the load, even though Whittingham was the leading rusher. We know Oregon loves to spread the ball out. I think they have 11 players with double-digit reception, 6 with at least 26, led by their tight end, Kenyon Sadek, who leads with 8 touchdowns as well. But in that first game, Indiana had 6 sacks and harassed the hell out of Dante Moore. So you being a former offensive lineman, what's going to change for this Oregon offensive line? Or what can they look at from that film in the first game to better equip themselves to not have Dante Moore running for his life?
Well, I do think some of this is on, one, that connection to the running game. I think they had a lot more third and longer in that game that lets the defense get into the fun designer stuff that they've done so well for that group. And your point about Noah Whittington in that backfield, he's a game-time decision tonight, questionable on the injury report. According to Katie George, Oregon had to move 2 defensive players to tailback this week to compensate for the injuries, one a linebacker and one a safety to try and go and plug those holes. So if you've got that group compromised, the offensive line, they're both really good in this game, but in different ways. And I worry a bit about one of the tackles, the left tackle, Isaiah Worlds for Oregon, and if you can go and try and confuse him, some of the ways that Indiana's really good at. So to me, Dad, it's stay really, really, Langdon Tragwell pointed this out, there were like 6 rushing attempts in the second half for Oregon in the last game. You got to kind of pull a Miami and stick with it, because if you give Indiana chances to rush the passer, they're really good at trying to make your quarterback, like they did to Ty Simpson in the backup for Alabama, make some decisions under fire, not always knowing where the bodies are coming from.
Listen, Indiana's the better team, right? They're the better team offensively. They're the better team defensively. Average 220 yards rushing, only average giving up 10 points a game and 73 yards on the ground. They should handle the lines of scrimmage. So it's going to take Dante Moore big plays on offense to move the ball, and certainly a better defensive effort than the first game.
Yeah, Dante Moore is going to have to show the growth from that first game and how he processes some of the high-end pressures that Indiana can throw at you. And then the other side with Fernando Mendoza, Oregon's got to bring the template that they used to beat Texas Tech, being able to get home with 4. At times, they were able to do it against Indiana the last time. You've got to be able to drop guys off into coverage, cover these great receivers like Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt, and make Fernando Mendoza uncomfortable with the minimum amount of bodies up front. Because if you blitz him, he's too Spartan. He's going to hit you in all the spots where it hurts. So I do pick Indiana in this game. I think they're the best team in the country. I think they're the best coach team remaining in this tournament. They're going to be a really tough out. And it sounds like, by all accounts, boots on the ground, Atlanta has been taken over by Hoosiers fans who are riding this one and enjoying every second of it here. You know what you guys are going to enjoy coming up after us here? It's Countdown Live, presented by Prime with Stan Verrett. A great bit of news, notes, information, awesome guests to help you get everything you need to get set for a night of great games coming up here on FanDuel Sports Network. So stick around. Starts right after us, 5:30 p.m. Eastern here on the network. Coming up next, the Fiesta continues. We'll talk to Josh Pate about what this win means for college football at large. Next on Golic Golic. Welcome back to Golic Golic. The world of college football keeps rolling on. We had one semifinal for the ages last night, and we are hoping for another coming up in a rematch with Oregon and Indiana. For more on that, the state of college football, one of the busiest mans in the game, Josh Pate, the host of Josh Pate's College Football Show. Check it out on 3. He's doing great work as an analyst over at ESPN as well, and already made the shift from Arizona to Atlanta, getting set for the Peach Bowl tonight. So, Josh, appreciate the time, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, you're a well-traveled individual such as myself. Are you a wake up in the same city that you finished work in the night before guy, or are you a let's go ahead and get to the next town and wake up the next morning where I'm going to be working guy?
I would always rather wake up where I'm supposed to be for that day. It's kind of akin to me of like, I saw someone post last night, a day off is great, but that night before the day off is even better. And I think getting somewhere, being where your feet are going to have to be the next day, that's a big win. That being said, getting to stay in and bask in the glow of what we saw in last night's semifinal, probably wouldn't have been a bad time either. You were there on hand for Miami's win over Ole Miss. We got in the Fiesta Bowl. I guess for this one, Mario Cristobal, the way that he's built this team, a juggernaut on both lines of scrimmage like we saw. But I know Mario himself has kind of been an interesting character in this whole conversation, people questioning his chops at different points along the way. What did last night and this run overall show you about the growth of Mario Cristobal in this program?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. It was kind of the cumulative effect of incremental gains there. Someone sent me a video of myself last night, which is normally a bad thing, but in this case, it was one of those rare positive head nods. It was from 2022. You remember back then, that was when they were losing to Duke at home. Middle Tennessee State, believe it or not, folks, came in there and beat them at home. And so, of course, you got the whole, man, did we make a mistake? Oh, did Miami hire the wrong guy? The U's never going to be back. And I said at the time, because I've spent a fair amount of time around Mario, know him fairly well, I said, well, hey, if you're asking me whether this season's going to go off the rails, the answer is yes, it already has gone off the rails. But I said in the video in 2022, and I feel kind of vindicated today in saying, I don't feel any different about their future. Like I always believed they'd stack the bricks and it would end up looking like a really, really strong fortified football program. And it's very reflective of what you used to see in the SEC more consistently, which is dominant line of scrimmage play. You got really good situational quarterback play. You got a loaded coaching staff, and it's really hard to see through them. Some teams, they get towards the finish line and there are very glaring deficiencies like saran wrap. You can see through it. Whether someone punches a hole in it that day or not, you can see through it. Hard to see through Miami because it's hard to see through that level of skill operating at the level it was. But I don't know how you felt last night, Mike. I picked them to win the game, and I got really, really uneasy when I'm looking at the fact that they dominated the stat sheets in front of me. They had a 41.5 to 18.5 minute time of possession edge. They ran 88 plays. They go 11 of 19 on third down. They hold the other guy to 2 of 10 on third down. They ran it for 191. They did all that. And it's a one possession game, and then they give it up, and Ole Miss takes the lead, and I'm thinking to myself, is this really about to happen? Does this stat sheet really lie to me that much? And then Carson Beck, who everyone and their mother, sister, brother, and father has an opinion on, puts together a drive for the ages. And we're not talking, look, all due respect, we're not talking about Indiana that really doesn't have much football history. Miami's got a lot of football history. And that drive last night, 15-play, 75-yard drive to win the thing, capped with Carson Beck running it in. Knowing his story, knowing the team that kind of said bye to him is sitting at home watching him play for Miami in a semifinal game. Man, that's like 15 layers of storyline. If you have a cousin that doesn't really care much about the game but loves storyline, this has been the playoff for him.
No question on that front. And I know that Carson Beck, storyline got a lot of love last night, but the storyline on the other sideline with Ole Miss, before we get to the SEC of it all and the way some things have changed there, just maybe putting a bow on what your view of Pete Golding and this program are going forward after what he showed you, and maybe one of the most strange circumstances we've seen someone begin their head coaching career.
Yeah, so everyone's saying good things about them today. They should be. It was an incredible test of your competitive character, and I thought they passed it with flying colors. I mean, there are a lot of teams out there not losing their coaches who have long since gone home for the winter, and Ole Miss will still play. And I thought that Georgia game, if it was going to derail them, if that external factor was going to be a distraction, it was going to bite them in the Georgia game. Once you saw them perform the way they did against Georgia, you realized, no, this has actually been a shot of adrenaline for them. So they come up short last night, valiant effort, valiant in defeat. And then my mind, I'm always like forward thinking, my mind immediately shifts to, all right, so how do they harness this? Because as well as I do, the sort of unspoken underbelly of this entire postseason, specifically this one, has been, we got new portal rules, we got a new portal calendar, and it's great if you're making a deep run in the playoffs, but you're doing it at the expense of being able to focus on that portal window. And now You're kind of behind the eight ball on that front. So I want to see, how do they harness this going forward? You know, a lot of things you want to believe about yourself if you're Ole Miss, they got validated. They're true. You really do have what it takes. You really do have something special there. But now the sugar high, that adrenaline effect wears off, and now it's just going to be you on the merit of you moving forward, and you got to compete in pretty shark-infested waters. But look, I say that, it sounds glass half empty. It's actually glass half full. I don't know, I'm kind of excited to see how they carry it because, dude, 2 months ago, we weren't talking about Pete Golding for a head coach anywhere, much less Ole Miss. And so an opportunity has dropped in his lap. I'm not saying he didn't earn it. I'm saying it was tough to see coming. So now let's see what they do with it.
Yeah, I didn't even think Pete Golding saw this coming for Pete Golding a couple of months ago in a lot of senses. So you're not alone on that front. The merit of all this, I think a lot of this postseason and this playoff run, the last three stacked together, have become a measuring contest for people now trying to spell the demise of the SEC's stranglehold on college football. Where are you at on the truth or not, or where it falls on the spectrum of what the SEC's standing is going into next season now, based on the results that we have, where now 3 straight years we won't have them represented in the title game?
Yeah, but so tell me this. Don't you feel that even if Ole Miss, like if they knock the ball loose from Carson Beck last night, Miami turns it over and Ole Miss wins the game, and Ole Miss is set to play for a national title, don't you really think the SEC is still in the same spot it is? Scenario A, scenario B. I know it looks way different on the marquee if an SEC team is going to the national title, but you still got the same set of circumstances. Like 1 or 2 plays doesn't change that for one team in one night. I think the stranglehold's gone. I mean, it's not loosening, it's gone. I think the 22 through 40 spots on these rosters are so glaringly different. The depth advantage, not to mention the top end talent advantage that the league used to enjoy, not just Alabama, but a half a dozen more programs deep. That's just eroded away. And I have said this over the past couple of weeks, and I can't quantify it. And frankly, I probably still need a few years for it to bear itself out. But Mike, I'm a believer that for a long time, the SEC did have such a discernible advantage talent-wise when they rolled out of bed every morning that they knew they could allow themselves to be a little bit loose, maybe even a little bit lazy in certain aspects. And one of them is hiring. And the way that not just head coaches are hired, I'm not talking about head coaches, but when the head coach is in place, the way that these guys have filled their buildings in the South is a little different than elsewhere. And a lot of times they have chosen to go hiring recruiters, maybe at the expense of hiring really good football coaches relative to their peers in other conferences. And it just didn't matter because they had the talent edge. They don't have the talent edge now. And yet some of the sort of incestuous buddy-buddy style hiring practices exist in the SEC. And I'm not even talking about one team in particular. I'm talking about as a conference. That right there, I think you'll see over the next 12, 24, 36 months really start to evolve, because necessity is the biggest change agent in this sport and in life. And you've got necessity to change now.
Yeah, and you certainly have still the level of investment of people who are going to be looking for the areas they need to change to make that happen. All right, Josh, you're in Atlanta, as we mentioned. Great Peach Bowl matchup coming up tonight with Indiana and Oregon, a rematch. What are you most excited to watch for in this game?
Man, the Oregon-Texas Tech game was wild, because we watched Dan Lanning have to go for it. Well, he didn't have to. He chose to go for it 8 times on 4th down. And Indiana, the first time they played Oregon, they held them to 3 of 14 on 3rd down. So if we get nothing more than a loose remake of Indiana-Oregon round 1, that means you've got Dan Lanning with a couple of dozen 4th down potential situations again. And I'm just really interested to see how he handles it, because I think we all know Dan Lanning well enough to know he's not backing off of his ethos or his DNA as a coach and their DNA as a program just because 1 week may have gone their way 50% of the time. And also, like, I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of, you're watching the film of Indiana, Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Kalen DeBoer feels pressured enough to go for it on 4th down on his own 30-yard line. And that sort of caved whatever chances Alabama had of competing early in that game. And I just wonder, when you throw all that in the blender and you press the button and pour it out, what does it equal for Oregon? Because it could just mean double middle fingers to the world, we're doing whatever we do. Or it could mean Dan Lanning looks at it and gets a little more strategic, maybe a little more old school field position in his approach. But if you do that, it's not necessarily a recipe for defeat, but it is Indiana's recipe, period, because that's what they've been so good at doing all year. What they've been is the same thing every week that forces a bunch of other teams to do something different than they normally would have done. And Indiana's done that to a T, and I would expect if they do it tonight, that'll be one of the areas. They limit Oregon running the ball. The other thing is looking at third down. When Oregon played them the first time around, it was an average of 3rd and 6.5 to go. And if you do that, and Dante Moore is in a lot of obvious passing situations on third down, that is not an envious position to be in or an enviable position to be in against Indiana. So third down, fourth down decision making, can Oregon run the ball? It seems like so much of the outcome is contingent on Oregon, but it's not out of disrespect to Indiana. It's just because I've sort of blindly started to assume I know what I'm going to get from Indiana. They're like the planet, and all their opponents are the satellite revolving around it. I got to see how they act.
Yeah, remarkable consistency. That steely glare from Curt Cignetti has become the heartbeat of that team, and it's why they're in a position right now, walking into tonight's game with a good chance to send themselves to the national championship. Josh, always appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the hell out of the game tonight. I know we're all looking forward to it.
I appreciate it, man.
So we talked about it a bit there, Dad. A lot of the conversation today has been about the reported demise of the SEC. Are you buying what everyone's selling in terms of how the changing landscape has maybe pushed their stranglehold back a bit?
Oh, it absolutely has. I agree that they had an upper hand on everybody else with talent. And NIL and the portal has certainly evened that out. We know Texas Tech spent the most money last year in the Big 12, and money's being spread around. Look again what Indiana did in 2 years rebuilding their team. So without question, listen, we're both for players getting paid. I don't know if we differ on maybe reining in the portal a little bit, but it certainly has made it the landscape more even.
Yeah, it's an even dispersion of talent now, where especially in the rev share world, everyone has some dollars to play with, enough to be able to woo a great player or two that would have been more comfortable being a depth piece or another piece in the rotation on one of these former championship teams. So the proof is in the pudding, and I'm most curious about if and how this affects things like the rankings next year, because college football is not like the NFL where it's regimented. It's a place where you can go out here and change the framework of how people think, and it can have a direct impact on how the rankings for other teams influence the teams that will ultimately make it to the championships with how those resumes unfold. Going to be exciting to watch. Almost as exciting as Wild Card Weekend coming up next. TJ Watt, one of the men trying to make an impact on this weekend and get his team that elusive playoff win, joins us here on Golic and Golic. Welcome back to Golic and Golic. A big weekend of football, which means we got a big guest list on Monday. Drew Bledsoe, former Super Bowl champion quarterback, going to talk to us about what may or may not happen with the New England Patriots back in the postseason, trying to make it happen for the first time in a while with Drake May at the helm. Don't want to miss that. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. here. What do you remember about getting ready for the playoffs, Dad? As we established before on the show, you made a few ventures into the playoff, even though I tried to short you to just one. What do you remember about this week?
Yeah, you did. I mean, and every time save one, we lost in the wild card round. We lost in the divisional round one time to the eventual Super Bowl champ Dallas Cowboys. It's an all or nothing mentality, right? Knowing that if you lose, you're cleaning out your locker. So it definitely takes on a little bit of a heightened feel in practice and attention to detail. Mainly, you never want to be the guy that screws up, but you really don't want to be the guy that screws up to make you pack your locker.
Certainly not. One guy trying to get past Wild Card Weekend, TJ Watt, who has been productive, as they say, since entering the league in 2017. All right, for more on the final game of Wild Card Weekend that you guys can listen to on Westwood One, the Steelers and the Texans on Monday night. Coverage starts 7 p.m. Eastern with me and Dad doing pregame radio. And to talk about that matchup, delighted to welcome in Steelers All-Pro linebacker, former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt, with us now here. TJ, good to have you, man. How you feeling heading into this weekend?
I'm feeling great, man. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate the time.
No, definitely appreciate the time. And listen, for you guys, no strangers to the playoff stage, seeking that playoff win here. When you get to this time of year, you, Mike Tomlin, this defense, so many veteran faces. What changes for you guys in terms of how you're starting to prepare for this?
I think the key is not a lot changes, honestly, other than intensity, just trying to understand that we could be on the couch next week. And I think it's important to continually remind everybody in this room how crucial winning this game is. Obviously, the playoff game, it's win or go home. But when you think about that and think about potentially sitting on the couch watching other people play next week instead of us, it kind of adds another intensity to it. And we know how special of a team that we have. And I've loved the energy this week so far. I'm really looking forward to see it pay off.
With the making the playoffs the last few years and losing in that first round, does that seep in? Is that talked about at all, or is that just put aside?
I don't think it's discussed. The guys that have been a part of it understand it, and I think that's just what adds to the intensity of this week and understanding that what we've done in the past hasn't worked. And we're open to doing new things this year, talking to guys that have made deep playoff runs or guys that have won Super Bowls. It's nice to have the Jalen Ramseys around, the guys that have done it in recent years. And more than anything, just trying to have as much sense of urgency as we possibly can.
For you, obviously, the partially collapsed lung was a huge story this year. Glad to see you back out there on the field physically and recovering from that still. How are you feeling?
I feel really good. Really happy with how everything played out in the football game. Was able to play a large amount of snaps last week. Didn't feel too sore this week, able to do everything in practice, so I feel really good. Did so much conditioning the week leading up to that last game that honestly felt really comfortable how good a shape that I possibly was. And no nicks and bruises in the last game, so I feel great. Fresh legs.
Kind of wild, as we all know how to rehab a shoulder or an elbow or a knee, but a dry needling session, it had to be a little different being injured from that.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first surgery. I mean, I've had many surgeries before, but first one where I ever woke up and I had a tube hanging out of my chest, and I was like, what the heck is this? No one told me about this. But I think more than anything, it was just the pain management. Because, with a knee, it's so like, it's just a knee. It's just a knee. I'm like, all right, I know that's normal pain. I can deal with that. But when it's in like your chest cavity area, it's a much more severe pain and a much scarier pain because you have no idea. You've never felt it before. You don't know how long it's supposed to last. I hate taking pain medicine, so I was just constantly bugging the doctor, the surgeon. But they did a great job with me and just saying that I was going to get better. And eventually, once the pain turned the corner, I was able to ramp up rehab and really get going. And I feel great right now.
Everyone glad to hear it. Certainly everyone there in Pittsburgh as well. You mentioned some of the championship experience on this roster. Certainly some of that and high-level experience overall with the guy you guys got playing quarterback now in Aaron Rodgers. What has his presence brought to the team this year, and what do you think it can bring now that the calendar's turned to postseason football?
I think it's just a calm confidence, honestly. He's been great in the locker room. He's gone to all the dinners on the road. He's just been a great teammate, just immersing himself in the Steeler culture. And it's funny, man, when he was taking the 2-minute drill down the field, there was no panic at all. No one was nervous. We were all just getting our helmets ready for when we were going to get our opportunity. It was almost a matter of if he was going to, or when he was going to do it, as opposed to if he was going to do it. We just had that much confidence in him because the guy still slings at an all-time level. There's so much confidence in that whole offensive group, and there's just a calm collective right now.
So, listen, he's a walk-in Hall of Famer. He's 42 years old. You're on your way to a walk-in Hall of Fame career. You're 31. Could you imagine doing what you're doing at 42 years old?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'd probably be in a wheelchair right now doing this interview.
Yeah, no question. Little different what you're asked to do and what Aaron's asked to do and how those things apply physically to you guys here. Speaking of confidence, how do you describe the confidence that this team has in Mike Tomlin? The outside world has spent so much time these last couple seasons debating if he's still the right leader for this football team. How do you guys feel about him?
Man, I love Mike T. I love playing for Mike T. I think he's an all-time motivator. He knows how to motivate guys that come from all walks of life, whether it's on an individual level or as a collective level. I mean, if anyone watches Hard Knocks or is able to see any of our team meetings, it's no secret why we love this guy and why we enjoy playing for him. I'm excited to have an opportunity to win a playoff game and to get this whole thing back on track.
Well, your playoff game is against the Houston Texans in Pittsburgh. Before we kind of get into the game a little bit, Houston's defense is ranked number one. Pittsburgh is always used to having a great defense. Is there like a kind of a side competition with outdoing their defense, which is considered a great defense?
I mean, I don't think it's a competition as far as on the side. I think it's more of we need to take the ball away. We need to protect the football. And obviously it's no secret that they also take the ball away and they protect the football. So we've basically said it's two trains on the track. We're built very similarly. And whoever plays the best defense is most likely going to come out of this game as the champions. And that's what's going to take. 4 quarters, obviously special teams is a factor as well. But we're definitely not minimizing our role as a defense in this game at all.
The last time you guys played Houston was CJ Stroud's rookie season during the regular season. As you guys study them on tape now, what stands out about him in this offense as you prepare for them?
I think just how calm and collective he is. He obviously has the legs, he has the arm talent. But 12 to be able to get it to him, 86 to be able to get it to him. They do a lot of great things up front as well. So he's looking to throw more than he was when we played him in the first time. But his legs are still there as good as they have been.
So when a quarterback has the ability to run, and you have obviously great edge rushers yourself, Highsmith, Herbig, is there any thought of a more disciplined pass rush to not let him out of the pocket, or no?
In theory, yes, but we don't like to rush scared here. That's the thing that I love about this defense is we're trying to be put in situations where we're not rushing scared. Whether it was college or early in my career, there's definitely times where you're playing a running quarterback and you use the mush rush or just the bull rush, and then you end up just trading 1 for 1 and you're not really getting in your pass rush and doing what you do best. We still need to throw our best punches. We can't let the fear of a quarterback escaping get us out of what we do best.
I think the fear is usually reserved for the people on the other side of your guys' pass rush. So none of that over there on Carson Street. TJ, we appreciate the time, man. Best of luck this weekend. We're all excited to watch you guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
That becomes the tall task for this Texans defense or offensive line, having to go out against this front that really since the Buffalo game, I think has acquitted itself a lot better.
Yeah, both these D-lines are obviously going to have an effect on the game, both in the high 40s in sacks, and both defenses with 15 interceptions for Pittsburgh, 19 for Houston. That's that D-line forcing pressure and the ball to have to come out. So who's going to ball hawk better in this game?
Yeah, going to be very curious. Again, the ability to extend plays and maybe overcome some of that advantage goes to Houston, but Aaron Rodgers and that steel-glazed confidence that TJ talked about in some of the pivotal moments was big for Pittsburgh on the final weekend of the regular season and could certainly be big for them going up against this Houston defense that's given everyone hell so far this year. Coming up next, we'll continue to look ahead to the weekend coming up, including what the Chicago Bears have to do to continue this magical run for Ben Johnson. Hour number 2 here on Golic Golic. We're the last thing standing in your way of a weekend full of football here. We will shepherd you to that point with the utmost sincerity here. Tom Thayer going to join us at the top of hour number 2 here as we get set for Wild Card Weekend. And every day we've been going and doing a deep dive on a couple of games. Today, NFC heavy as we look at 2 rematches. One in the NFC North that's actually part of a three-peat between the Bears and the Packers. The other, a rematch of a Panthers and Rams game that certainly had an interesting shockwave sent throughout the NFL during the regular season here. But, Dad, as we look, this Bears team has been a storybook season for year one under Ben Johnson. The job that he has done going up against hopefully a healthy Jordan Love and a Packers team led by Matt LaFleur for now, question mark? All right, for more on one of the more intriguing matchups of the weekend, delighted to welcome in former Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears offensive lineman and proud Notre Dame Fighting Irish alum Tom Thayer with us here now. You can catch him on the broadcast for the Bears radio broadcast as well here. Tom, good to see you. Happy New Year. How you feeling going into this weekend?
I feel great. Listen, I think this is my 86th Bear and Packer game that I've been a part of as a player and a broadcaster. And I think it's the most intriguing. Rarely do they play in the playoffs. They're playing 3 times within 6 weeks. The other 2 games have gone down to the last play of the game. So I guess we're going to see how this thing unfolds. Got a tremendous amount of faith in Ben Johnson and the continuous development of Caleb. So let's see how this thing works out. I'm just glad they're playing in Soldier Field.
Well, and speaking of that, little history with Tom and I. Tom and I were teammates at Notre Dame, and then we played against each other when he was with the Bears and I was with the Eagles, most famously in the 88 playoff game, the Fog Bowl. So you mentioned Soldier Field. That game was in Soldier Field. Is there any fog in the forecast for this game? Will we be able to actually see it, unlike the game we played in?
I got to tell you, Mike, last night we had a spring-like day here. We had like 3 inches of rain. It was pouring. The wind was 30 miles an hour from the south. If we would have had those same conditions on a game day at Soldier Field, it would have been a repeat performance, because when that warm wind starts blowing off the cold lake, it creates that fog. I really don't know what to expect. I think the temperatures are going to be comfortable, but they could have wind gusts up to 30 miles an hour, and that depends on what direction it's coming from.
Well, certainly the weather going to be a factor this weekend. You want ideal conditions for Chicago going into a division game, a team that they know well that's produced some really exciting games this year. But one of the common threads, at least on the Chicago side, Tom, has been the slow starts for the Chicago Bears in the first half of these games. For all the strides this offense has made, what's the next step in them being able to get off to that faster start and maybe not have to climb out of a hole in this one?
Well, you got to play air-free football, first of all, because then you look at the first 15 plays of last week's game. So take into account the last 3 games they've played. They've had a total of 59 plays in the first half. That's in 3 games. And so when you look at the performance last week against Detroit, they might have been a little flat. There wasn't a lot to play for, but they had some mental errors that came back to haunt them significantly, and Detroit benefited from them defensively. So I think Ben Johnson has addressed it a lot at the podium this week, that this has got to be an air-free first 15 and then first quarter and hopefully the first half, because the Bears are capable of scoring points. But when you have a young quarterback developing in the first year of a Ben Johnson system, you're going to get Rome Odunze back in the mix. You just have to be able to come out here, and offensive line has to play their best game, and the counterparts, the running backs, the receivers, tight ends, everybody else has to have a hand in it. Last week in the Detroit game in the fourth quarter, they have a drive that was predominantly led by Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet. So if you can have one of those drives early in the game, that's okay too, because they have the weapons, but it's just got to be a perfect brand of at-home football.
Nationally, when people talk about the Bears, they talk about the turnovers they create on defense, Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson. What doesn't get talked about enough, and both of you were former old linemen, both interior linemen, Tom, talk about the acquisition of Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, and Joe Thuney. I mean, all new players this year, and how much they have stabilized that offensive line in front of Caleb Williams.
Yeah, Mike, you talk about those 3 quality veteran free agents, but Dan Rochard, the offensive line coach they brought aboard, he's the type of guy that's had a hands-on approach to the development of this offensive line. And it took a little while, because as much experience as Jonah, Drew, and Joe Thuney have, that was all good and well. But then they had to change the brand of football that Darnell Wright was playing. And since the 5th game of the year, he has played some of the best right tackle football in the league. He's more physical. He's more dominant in terms of having one-on-one responsibilities in the passing game. And then they've had 3 different left tackles, Braxton Jones, Theo Benedette, and then they settled on Ozzie Trapillo. And I think when the middle 3 guys started to grow this relationship, that not only could they help the interior of the offensive line, but they could also keep an eye on the offensive tackles they're playing with. And Joe Thuney playing next to Ozzie Trapillo and kind of helping him along in terms of NFL type of play. And then Darnell Wright bringing up a level that it was required of him. He had to start playing like the high draft choice he was. But, Drew Dahlman hasn't missed a snap. Joe Tooney is still playing at a high level. Jonah Jackson is playing more snaps than he's played in the last couple of years. So along with those three veterans that you talk about and Dan Rochard, the offensive line coach, probably the most important improved position from last year.
Certainly, that offensive line's been sensational. Dad mentioned before, the defense has taken the football away at the highest level in the NFL, and they're going up against a quarterback in Jordan Love, who hasn't played since he was knocked out of the last Bears game that Green Bay Packers played, dealt with the concussion there that saw Malik Willis go in. Who needs to be the biggest performer for Chicago, outside of talking about turnovers in terms of down and down out production, if they're going to slow down what Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur's offense can do?
It's the defensive line as a whole. They're playing about 8 guys in a rotation. So they've got to formulate a plan that they somehow limit the success of the running game. So Jordan Love has more put on his plate. And, Josh Jacobs is a heck of a running back, and he's done a really nice job against the Bears in both of the games. But it's about the defensive line. Can they not only stop the run and still make a dysfunctional backfield when Jordan Love wants to throw the ball? And it necessarily doesn't have to compute to multiple sacks, but just get him off his spot, put him in an uncomfortable throwing position, allow him to challenge coverage and see if the Bears can get some of those turnovers you talked about. But this game as a whole, its offensive line and defensive line, as well as those two positions play, it's either going to increase the chances for the Bears to win this game and move on in the playoffs.
What's the biggest improvement you have seen from year 1 to year 2 in Caleb Williams?
Limiting the amount of sacks that he was taking. Now he's willing to throw the ball out of bounds if the route isn't there, but throwing check down routes that maybe he wasn't throwing last year with regularity, and he would throw it into an area that could be intercepted or knocked down. I think Ben Johnson is the perfect quarterback developer at this stage in Caleb's career. And if they have that relationship that last 5 or 6 years, we're probably going to see the best out of Caleb, maybe late next year or even the year after that. Trying to master this terminology. He's more consistent with the variation of snap counts he's able to use, but it is his willingness to keep an eye on where pressure's coming from, anticipate it, and either get the ball out of his hands, run for positive yards, or just save the team for negative yards with sacks.
No doubt the sack mitigation has been otherworldly from him this year.
Yep.
And all of this is kind of what people were hoping for, right? This was the pie in the sky, bringing Ben Johnson over with his reputation. Everyone knew what an incredible play designer he was, how great he was on offense. But as a head coach in a season that now in his first year has them in the playoffs, is there anything that surprised you about Ben Johnson's tenure relative to what you knew about him coming in?
It surprises me because I've been around a lot of new head coaching candidates here in Chicago, and they all have that introductory press conference at the podium, and they make all these claims that sometimes they don't come true. Ben Johnson got up to the podium and says, we're not in a rebuilding era. This is a win now era. If in terms of talking about the receivers, he said, no block, no rock. And that is a requirement that he puts on the shoulders of the receivers, that you better be able to block downfield and provide some extra running room, whether a receiver makes a catch or a running back makes through the line of scrimmage. And then one of the most importantly, the important things he said is talking about the running back position is they must be willing to get the dirty yards. And I do think when the Bears, they underperformed on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 over the last couple of years, that's been kind of a point of emphasis to make sure that you're willing to do what it takes to get that yard. And DeAndre Swift has just been an ultimate number 1 running back. Kyle Monangai has come in and answered as a 7th round draft choice and done everything that Ben has asked out of him. But it's all these statements he made at the podium, he is following through with them. And they are a requirement if you're going to play for him. And then Colston Loveland, the 1st round draft choice out of Michigan. They brought him aboard, and how is he going to fit with Cole Kmet? Well, he's done everything and more that's asked out of one of the more complex positions in the NFL nowadays, because he can play fullback, he can play motion tight end, he can play point of attack tight end, he can play backside tight end, he can line up in a slot as a wide receiver, or he can line up on the line of scrimmage. So when you look at the way that Ben has been able to develop specific positions, and then you look at the way Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and Kyle Monangai have contributed on the offensive side of the ball for rookies. Just Ben is everything that the Bears hired and more when you look at the record this year.
It's been amazing to watch him already live up to the expectations in that way. It's created a great season and a great atmosphere going into the game this weekend. Tom, thanks so much for the time today. Have a great call this weekend, and take care of Dad while he's in town wandering around Soldier Field.
Hey, man, love the Golics, always have, and look forward to seeing Big Mike every time I get to see him.
Thanks, Tom.
Boy, throwback Fog Bowl pictures of you there, Dad. So there is a player, obviously, for that game here, but first time broadcasting at Soldier Field?
Yeah, it's my first time broadcasting. Yeah, I have not called a game there. The fact, I think the last time I was there was when you and your brother Jake played against Miami in the Shamrock Series when you guys were at Notre Dame. So yeah, it's been a while since I've been there. And Tom and I go way back. Tom was a senior when I was a freshman, and that was back when we had all the freshmen practice for 3 days by ourselves, and then the upperclassmen came in, and that's when I got welcomed to college football. One of my first one-on-ones was against that side of the line. Tom Thayer was right guard and Phil Pozderic was a right tackle. And boy, oh boy, what an experience being an 18-year-old freshman going up against two senior O-linemen.
Yeah, not what I'd call my idea of a good time.
Yeah.
This game, however, is. So the third installment of this game, both have been great this season. Both have been Bears slow starts, as we mentioned with Tom. But speaking of rolling into it not feeling great, the Green Bay Packers on a 4-game losing streak to end the regular season. It's been a really rough go for them, especially since Micah Parsons left. What have you seen out of this defense, and how well can they affect Caleb Williams, given the fact that they're missing their best pass rusher?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, they are not getting to the quarterback like they were. All Rashawn Gary's sacks came in the first 7 games. Obviously, Micah Parsons was a part of those games. So they're not getting to the quarterback. They don't have a lot of interceptions. So Jeff Hafley, the D coordinator, he has to scheme it a little more to try and put pressure on the quarterback and stop the run. This Bears running attack is one of the best in the league, with Monangai, the 7th round pick, and DeAndre Swift, the tag team, and they're doing a nice job running the ball. So that's first and foremost. Green Bay has to stop that, because that's what Chicago's been living off, obviously, the big play of Caleb Williams. But Caleb Williams, out of qualified quarterbacks, has the worst completion percentage of any quarterback in the league, yet he set a Bears passing record this year, just missed getting to 4,000 yards, would have been the first Bear quarterback to pass for 4,000 yards. But yes, one person gone out of this defense for Green Bay, and it has significantly changed.
Yeah, for Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator, who's going to be one of the names mentioned in the coaching cycle this offseason, he's had to up the blitz percentage pretty precipitously. I think 20% to like 28%. You look at Caleb Williams, though, this year, like you said, maybe the completion percentage stuff isn't there, but in terms of EPA per drop back, some other stats, he was 8th best among quarterbacks against the blitz this year. So he's done well in that regard. I don't worry much about the Bears offense. I feel pretty good about them in this game. Rome Odunze coming back, obviously huge, even though he's reinserting after a while. Him and Caleb Williams have had incredible chemistry going back into last year. So having another receiving threat to go along with an offense that's got that consistent bedrock of the run game, it really is the defense I worry about for them, Dad. Can they continue to win late like they have in the final 2 minutes of these games, and based off turnovers the way that they have all year long against Jordan Love in this offense?
Yeah, that's the side of the ball I want to talk about. But quick correction. I was at Soldier Field for my son-in-law, Ben Broniker's playoff game when he was playing with the Chicago Bears. How quickly I forget that. A double doink cost them the game in that one. So, yes, I was at Soldier Field not too many years ago. But, yes, this is the side of the ball. The Bears defense ranks worst of any playoff team in total defense and scoring defense. They live for the turnovers. What happens if they don't have a turnover? But this Green Bay offense, Mike, it was led early on by Tucker Kraft, who tore his ACL in Week 9. Luke Musgrave takes over, hasn't scored a touchdown this year. As a matter of fact, hasn't scored a touchdown since his rookie year in 23. First-round pick Matthew Golden has no touchdowns this year. Jaden Reed has played 7 games this year, broke his collarbone and foot in week 2. He's come back. Dontavius Wicks is out this game with a concussion. Bo Melton out this game on IR. Romeo Doubs, 4 touchdowns in the first 4 games, 2 touchdowns in the final 12 games. A lot of it relies on Christian Watson, who missed the first 7 games because of a torn ACL last year. So it is going to be who is the guy that they're going to go to. They'll have a good running game with Josh Jacobs, though at the end of the year he had a big fumble against the Bears in their loss. And after that fumble, had no more carries in that game. And then the next week, he had a career-low 4 carries. So who are you going to count on in that Green Bay offense?
I think that's been my biggest issue with Green Bay this year is the highs have looked incredible on offense. When Jordan Love is pushing the ball downfield, and man, if you can do that in man coverage in this game against the Bears, even with getting Kyler Gordon back, who I think sensational, has been out for them for a while now, you can have success. That's the kind of high-risk, high-reward football that Jordan Love is best at, and that also could lead to the Bears getting their hands on more football. So I understand Chicago's defense. We talk all the time in the postseason about you can't be terrible at one thing, the way the Buffalo Bills are at rush defense, and certainly the way Chicago is at a lot of things on defense. But I do think the lack of consistency for the Green Bay Packers has me leaning Bears in this one in a way that's, I don't know, a magical season that's been about them being the cardiac Bears late that keeps it rolling here. We will get official picks coming up later in the show as we go along. We'll pick Wild Card Weekend. We'll pick everything else. But coming up next, a night of big milestones and potentially another star player on the move in the NBA. We'll hit that up next here on Golic Golic. Welcome back to Golic Golic. This week, the NBA's already seen a bright star-ish in Trae Young, moved before the trade deadline. The former Hawks All-NBA player now plays his basketball for the Washington Wizards going forward. Did see, speaking of interesting statements, we talked about the one from Damon Williams before. The statement from Trae Young talking about his move to Washington, about being in a place where, you know, the support and all these things are aligned. Like, you were in Atlanta for a long time. It felt like they were behind you and made a lot of things try and work for you. So I don't really get that one either. But John Morant may be the latest name added to the mix there, as sources told Shams Charania that the Memphis Grizzlies are entertaining trade offers for the 2-time All-Star point guard. Morant averaging career lows in minutes, rebounds, 2 and 3-point percentages. His scoring average has dropped to 19 points per game, which is the lowest since his rookie season. He's had fewer dunks than ever before. A lot of this ties back to a lack of being able to jive with the new coaching staff. Tuomo Sisalo had him suspended earlier this season for 1 game for conduct detrimental to the team. You combine this with the host of off-the-court things that have come into the picture for John Morant in recent years. How valuable is he, Dad, in your mind, to another NBA team, similar to the questions we asked about Trae Young?
Well, listen, I think he's a lot more important than Trae Young to a team. What he can do, he may be the one of, if not the best athlete in the NBA, and I think the NBA athletes are the best athletes in the world. But listen, he does now. He hasn't been in trouble in a while off the court, the kind of trouble that he was getting in, quite honestly. But he's still kind of a wild card, right? On the court, when he's right. But you know, you certainly are rolling the dice a little bit.
It would be interesting to see. He's still got 3 years left on his deal. He's eligible for an extension, but because it wasn't on an all-NBA team, it's not as much as it could have been. All these different things that maybe contractually make this a little bit better, having some semblance of control. If you're another team, salary's 28th in the league right now. Availability has always kind of been a question mark, though. Who's a team? I saw some of the names thrown out there as potential trade destinations. Maybe the Milwaukee Bucks, the Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors, all could be teams in the mix.
Yeah. They all could be teams in the mix. Again, I think he would be an important piece to a contending team. And then real quick, how about we talked about Anthony Davis from Dallas, possibly with Atlanta having money to possibly move him. Had a ligament in his hand that he may be out for weeks now. So you wonder if that'll make people look the other way.
Yeah, certainly an interesting one there. I'll be curious to watch what happens. The Bucks are interesting since they're kind of desperate to keep Giannis happy, and some things haven't worked out so far for that team. The Miami Heat, one of the teams mentioned there. The Miami Heat, also one of the teams in our active rivalry, powered by the active cash card that we got coming up Saturday, 7 o'clock Eastern, right here on FanDuel Sports Network. Pacers and Heat. Two teams that already met earlier this season. And, Dad, quite honestly, it's been a year to forget for the Indiana Pacers, but the Heat, they'll be happy to just play a basketball game. Just see their game against the Bulls postponed due to condensation issues on the floor of the United Center. The Blackhawks placed a game on Wednesday, and because it was unusually warm and rainy, they weren't able to get that done in time. So, interesting, kept the Heat maybe fresh legs going into this matchup against the overmatched Pacers right now.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to play with basketball on a hardwood floor with condensation. I mean, that you're just begging for an injury. In this rivalry, 135 games they played. First one was in January of '89. But really, it's the teens where they met a lot in the Eastern Conference Final in 12, 13, 14, and 20, where the Heat won them all. 4-2, 4-3, 4-2, and 4-zip. The only time Indiana beat them in the playoffs was in 04. They beat Miami 4-2, but really kind of the heyday of this rivalry was when LeBron was in Miami, Paul George, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson with the Pacers. And who could forget Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear on the foul line, right? I mean,
I was just going to say, that's the most memorable moment in most of our minds from this, right?
Yes.
The meme-worthy content that came from Lance Stevenson, who was one of the more eccentric and interesting players that we had in that against LeBron James.
Oh, without question. I mean, who saw that coming, right? Certainly LeBron didn't. But maybe everybody knowing Lance maybe wasn't as surprised as we all were in watching that.
No, certainly. So one of the great moments from this game that you would never possibly want to miss. But if you do have to miss great moments from this game or any other, make sure you get caught up on the FanDuel Sports Network app. NBA and NHL fans, listen up. If you ever miss a live game, you can catch up with game replays on the app as soon as the final whistle blows. Every highlight, every big moment, and your choice of 5, 10, or 15-minute condensed games. Just download the FanDuel Sports Network app today and make sure you are never caught lacking when the action is happening. That almost rhymed. Coming up next, we'll look at best bets, not only for the game coming up tonight in Atlanta, but all the wild card action this weekend with Stormy, Buonantony next on Golic Golic. We are on the cusp of more great football action that gets going tonight into this weekend. And to help us out with that, one of our favorite people stopping by back here, Stormy Buonantony, who you can check out hosting Money Moves over on VSiN, doing a great job on sidelines for ESPN. Saw you at the incredibly chaotic FCS National Championship game. But also, and man, this feels like a full circle moment. The last time we had you on, Stormy, we were campaigning for you to be the official sideline reporter of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And while that didn't happen just yet this year, you did receive, I saw, the Pop-Tarts Bowl gift suite, the sample platter of the different flavors from that game here. I trust it was everything you dreamed it would be and more.
I just meant like the pure elation that I felt when I opened the package. And I have to tell you, Mike, it was delayed satisfaction because I was working the Orange Bowl. And as you mentioned, the FCS championship this past week. So I was on the road for like 10 days. And the day that I left my house was the day the package arrived. So my neighbor picked it up and I had no idea what it was when I just said like it was from Florida. And I was like, I don't know, maybe the Orange Bowl sent me a backpack or something. I don't know. And so when I got home and that's what it was, I was shook to my core. It was arguably, aside from my marriage, the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I immediately busted it open and ate the cookies and cream flavor. I've already had like 3 sets of it so far since opening. It's been amazing. And Senior, I like to think of myself as the Temu version of your son, right? Like he does all of the TikTok video breakdowns and everything, and people just automatically send him things. I have to really campaign for this. So I'm working for it. You know, I'm Walmart brand. He's Target or something bougie, but I'm getting there.
Hey, but bottom line is you both are getting the packages. And quite honestly, if I was your neighbor, half the Pop-Tarts would have been gone without question. Are you Are you a fruit-filled Pop-Tart or a cookies and cream, cinnamon, sugar, or fudge?
I don't discriminate. It just depends on my mood that day. But I will say top of the line, and I think I might have told you guys last time, my favorite flavor without question is a toasted chocolate fudge Pop-Tart with butter on it. It's next level. It's so good. I haven't tried the protein strawberry one yet. And I'm wondering, am I going to feel like it's too healthy? I don't know yet. I don't know how I feel about it.
That's true.
I can assure you, as someone had multiple packs of that, hoping to accomplish their gains, you're going to feel just fine. The usual Pop-Tart goodness in that one there, but 10 grams of protein, which is awesome. We love it. We're still hunting that Pop-Tart down in the wild, and he will be brought to justice swiftly. Let's make some money moves while we've got you here, Stormy. We got another great college football game coming up tonight before we get to Wild Card Weekend. Fernando Mendoza and IU take on the rematch with Oregon. As you look at this one, is there an angle that you like to bet this game, and who do you think wins?
Yeah, there are a couple. And it's interesting. At first blush, I really did lean toward Oregon in this one, just from a strictly numbers standpoint. When you look back to their first meeting back in October, when Indiana won, Oregon was a 7 or 7.5 point favorite in that game. And then as you reset the line for this game, it was at about 4.5. And now we're down to 3 with the dog getting played here, potentially in at least part for what I'm talking about. It's like an 11 or so point swing from that last game that we saw at Autzen Stadium. Just from a number standpoint alone, I felt like maybe that was too many points of a shift, even with the remaining data points that we've seen. And then my co-host on Money Moves, JVT, presented this argument to me just about Indiana at large of what if they are kind of just like UConn in the basketball tournament a couple years ago, where they were just this juggernaut and it didn't matter what team or what spread you put in front of them, they were covering and they are just on a different plane. And I kind of talked myself into that a little bit. I think Indiana might just be operating at a little bit of a different level than everybody else is right now. And with you having that hook go away on the 3.5 and being able to get the flat 3 right now, that's ultimately where I settled. I'm rolling with Indiana and Curt Cignetti to continue to get this thing done and advance to the national championship, which how freaking insane is that to say out loud?
Oh, my God. Indiana in the national championship game is pretty crazy, but I think that's where most people are heading. NFL, 6 games this weekend. Biggest spread, Rams on the road, favored by 10.5 over Carolina. How do you divide that one up?
So this is a tough one. I am married to a Panthers fan, so I have watched far too much Carolina Panthers football. But I also was on the air live during the first meeting for Carolina and Los Angeles when they had the improbable, when Matthew Stafford throws the pick 6, he has 3 turnovers, like everything that could go wrong did, and Carolina ends up winning that game. And I think people look at the 31-28 final and say, well, Carolina got their points because of all of those turnovers. And yes, Mike Jackson did have that pick 6, but the Panthers actually didn't cash in on the other 2 turnovers. So this score hypothetically could have been even higher, which kind of led me to looking at that total 45.5 and going over. I contemplated the Rams team total, but it's 28.5 and juiced. So I settled with the full game instead, because for as anemic as I know as the Panthers offense has looked since that game, the Rams are going to give up points. I don't know your guys' opinion of the Cardinals, Falcons, Seahawks, and Lions offense lately. Not great, Bob. The last 4 weeks of the season facing those teams, they've given up 29.75 points per game. So I feel like the Panthers should at least be able to get theirs a little bit in this game and get us over that total. As for the spread at 10.5, that feels like a high spread in a playoff game, but I get the redemption angle and I understand that they're a team that's just operating at a different level from Carolina, but I just couldn't get on board at laying such a big number or taking one. The spread just felt like something to stay away from for me.
It feels like you did a good job of navigating, working with your head and your heart there. I think your Panthers fan husband would be very proud of the way that you've approached this one here. And then for you, even more personal, the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. A big matchup with lots of postseason lore built into it recently here. Both of these teams have dealt with varying levels of injuries. Obviously, the 49ers have been overrun by it here. Do they have a chance of being able to pull this off?
To win, I don't know. I want to say yes, but at 5.5 with the way that this spread has been bet out, I do think that's a coverable number, at least for San Francisco. And you mentioned the injuries. It has been a problem for them each of the last 2 years. It's been remarkable that they've overcome it as much as they have this season to be where they were in a position the last week of the regular season for the number 1 seed in the NFC. And I know that they had some costly injuries the back end of the season, in addition to everything they were already dealing with. And Tatum Bethune's done for the year. And for anybody who doesn't know who that is, he was Fred Warner's backup. And Fred Warner's done for the season. So now you're 3 deep at a very important position on this defense that has already struggled as much as it has. That said, I'm just not 100% sold that this is an Eagles offense that's going to completely be able to take advantage of it. They have the 5th highest 3-and-out rate in the National Football League. And for as good as they've been in the red zone this year, they're still 24th in the NFL in yards per game, a stat that they were 7th in a season ago when they went into the postseason. Trent Williams is a really key piece of this for me for San Francisco, though. So I'll say my favorite bet in this game is the under. But as far as the spread goes, if Trent Williams plays, I am sold on the 5.5. I think the number is 4-13 for the 49ers in games that he doesn't play. So he is very significant in what he does for this offense up front and for them to operate at a high level. But in terms of the total overall, I was just looking at the weather in this game, 13 to 17 mile an hour winds, 28 mile per hour gusts this is going to be consistent wind throughout the game. And for two offenses that are as run heavy as they are, don't have awesome run defenses on the other side, are going to lean on their star running backs here. So a lot of elements just led me toward the under in this one. Despite, by the way, the 49ers have been such an over team for me this year because their offense has been operating at such a high level and their defense is so bad. But this is the one time that I'm kind of going against the grain there. And the Eagles have been a great under team and their defense at large has been so effective.
Fred Warner, by the way, doing some hella rehabbing on that dislocated ankle, talking about if San Francisco goes on a run, the thought of him playing again is almost seems bizarre.
Please let us advance just so I can see that.
How about it? I
just want to see something.
Another road favorite, Houston going to Pittsburgh. Does the fact that Pittsburgh just keeps losing in the first round, I think 6 playoffs in a row, go into any equation here?
I think so, unfortunately. And I know this team has nothing to do with those teams, but there is something to the history, I think, weighing on the franchise and weighing on a head coach and weighing on a fan base to an extent. And the bet I ended up placing in this game was the Texans in the first half at a short number because they're laying a full field goal for the game, 1.5 to 2.5, depending on where you look for the first half. I laid the 1.5 at slight juice minus 120. But in these playoff losses for the Steelers, this was a kind of stunning stat for me. They didn't score a single point in the first quarter of any of them. They were outscored 63-0 in those games. And you look at what the Steelers have done this season in terms of their offense, they have been so much more effective in the second half and clutch time being a scoring team than they are in the first half. Some of the fourth quarters have been really impressive with what Rodgers has done. 9 of his 24 touchdowns this year have come in the fourth quarter. His rating's a 102.3. The Steelers actually averaged the 6th most fourth quarter points in the league. The start of their games have been a very different story. They only had a field goal in the first half last week against Baltimore, 6 points against the Browns, did tie Detroit at the half with a 10-point half, just 7 points though against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, this is a Houston team that, despite all the talk about their offense not being any good, what has carried them as having the best defense in the NFL, has been really fast starting. They've led by at least a field goal in the first half in every single game on the last 7. And they give up the second fewest points per drive in the NFL. They force the most field goals. I know that DK Metcalf is coming back for the Steelers, so maybe their offense can do a little something. But as far as just early operation between recent history and playoff history for the Steelers, I felt like Houston in the first half would be a safer play.
Completely agree. That one will be a great capper to an excellent weekend of football that we got coming our way here. And we're all better and smarter now for it. Stormy, thanks always for the time. Enjoy the rest of that box of delicious Pop-Tarts. We'll talk to you on the other side of that sugar high.
Appreciate you so much. And I actually have Hershey's Kisses just on my desk. I feel like I'm like the junior, not quite as cool version of you when it comes to sweets.
I just think you're like the long-lost sister that the Golic family needs opposite my sister now. So we'll see you at the next family gathering. Plenty of snacks will be served. Thanks, Stormy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stormy. See ya.
Awesome stuff. I am now starving as we head into our next deep dive of the weekend. And we started with her talking about the game that we wanted to look at next here. Rams-Panthers, which is a rematch of a game where the Rams, Stormy did not misspeak, actually won against the Rams, or excuse me, the Panthers won against the Rams at a time where so many people, us included, were talking about the Rams as the best team in the NFL. Matthew Stafford did such a good job protecting the football outside of really 2 games this year, this Rams game being one of them. I know Stormy had reasons why those turnovers maybe even weren't fully impactful the way that we thought they could have been in that game. But Dad, do you see any reason to believe that the Panthers can actually make that lightning strike twice this weekend?
It would have to strike the same way, right? Bryce Young would have to have another incredible game. He was, 15 of 20 for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. As we mentioned, 3 turnovers by the Rams. It broke Stafford's 28 touchdown passes without an interception. He throws a pick 6. Carolina controlled the clock. They ran the ball 40 times for 164 yards. So everything went right for them. And it's tough to ask that to happen 2 times against the same team. Let's be honest. The Rams are a better team top to bottom in this game. But, again, that's why you play the game. And it was at Carolina. This one's at Carolina again. But Carolina didn't finish the season well. Neither did Tampa Bay. They played that game that ended up meaning nothing because of the Atlanta Falcons. But Carolina lost 3 of their last 4. So they're not coming in with any kind of momentum at this point. So I don't know how you can not like the Rams in this game.
Yeah, the Rams on their best day do have a claim to being the best team in football. The defense has certainly shown more holes in the back half of the season. Chris Shula was one of the bells of the ball early on, and I think as the year has gone along, we've seen the secondary maybe a little bit more inconsistent than you'd like in some of these matchups, and that really is like on both sides of the ball. If you look at the paths to victory for the Panthers, obviously turning Matthew Stafford over would go a long way in that. That could be helped by one of the big injuries in this game for the Rams offensive line. Kevin Dotson, one of their great guards, out for this game. So you look at Derek Brown on that defensive front, who's been awesome for Carolina in his tenure there, would have to have a big game trying to make it difficult. Matthew Stafford's not one of the mobile quarterbacks that the NFL has. And so if you can bother him up the middle, life could get pretty interesting. And then on the other side, Dad, one of the guys that right now seems like a lock for Rookie of the Year on the offensive side has been Teteroa McMillan. And the job that he's done being the big security blanket for Bryce Young. And if you look, that Rams secondary, again, has had some issues. If you get a bad day by any of the guys back there, Emmanuel Forbes to me has kind of been maybe the direction that the wind blows for this team. If you get a good Emmanuel Forbes day where he's aggressive, breaking on the ball, getting his hands on stuff, we've watched him in person go and really impact the game at a high level. But if not, and all of a sudden Bryce Young and McMillan are really firing on all cylinders on some of those money downs where we've seen them swing games, that could be the path to victory, even if I would never pick them in this game.
Here, and still the most surprising thing to me, and it was so long ago, lest we forget, Matthew Stafford not only playing, but not missing a game and being the favorite for the MVP. Go back to the preseason. This dude didn't practice. He was laying in contraptions for his back. His quote, there were some lean moments. It was touch and go there for a bit. A lot of treatments and things that I did to try and help myself get to this point. I didn't know if I'd get there, but I went there and it was wait and see. Let's see what happens. Luckily, it turned out pretty good. You think? But, I mean, remember the preseason we were talking about, oh, man, who they're going to get, what's going to happen to this team? Because you know, even if he starts the season, he's not going to finish the season. MVP season later, it's been nothing short of a miracle.
No, it certainly has been amazing to get to watch. And what a gift. Like the fact that Matthew Stafford at 37 years old has the chance to take home the first MVP of his career after largely having that elude him in what is a Hall of Fame career, especially if you add that accolade to it. The Super Bowl that he came over here and already won with Sean McVay. And that institutional knowledge. We talked about that a bit with TJ Watt relative to Aaron Rodgers. And I do think that's important as we get ready to march into this time of year. And speaking of marching, let's march forward. and finally pick these damn games. Coming up next, as we wrap up Golic and Golic, we'll get you a pick for the Peach Bowl, for Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. Maybe pick your next partner and help you out in your dating life right here on Golic and Golic. As we wrap up the week here on Golic and Golic, Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr., it's time for picks. We have brought on a number of experts. Thank you to everyone who stopped by today. Tom Thayer, Josh Pate, Stormy Buonantony, and of course the great TJ Watt to get us set both college and pro for an awesome weekend of games. Now he's got to pick the right answers and show everyone what big smart boys we are. So with that in mind, let's look ahead. I think both of us were on Miami last night in the Fiesta Bowl and got that one tonight. 5th-ranked Oregon and Indiana take flight in the Peach Bowl. It sounds like, based on everyone I've seen tweeting, boots on the ground there, it is overrun by Indiana fans who had a much closer trip and have certainly had a much longer drought of big moments like this. So with all that support in mind, Indiana versus Oregon, Dad, who you got? What's your key?
Oh, listen, I like Indiana. I just think they're the most balanced team in this playoff run right now. I think it'll be them against Miami. They're both lines of scrimmage. How we talked about with Miami and Mississippi, I think would take control of the game. And we saw Miami had 4 drives of 13 or more plays. I think Indiana will just slowly build up on you, both offensive line and defensive line. Now, Oregon can hit some plays. They have a hell of an athletic tight end that has, I think, 8 touchdown catches this year. Defense will definitely get tested, but I think much like, and it's difficult for a team to beat a team the second time in the year, and that's what Indiana is trying to do. Dante Moore is going to have to put it on the cape like we always talk about with Josh Allen. But the thing I'm most interested to see, I think Indiana wins, and I'm really interested to see how the split of fans is in Miami, where Miami literally has a home game in the national championship game, but how many Indiana fans will travel to that game?
Yeah, I imagine the answer is a lot for a moment that feels like it's got so much gravity and so much historical importance for a team that has been a doormat for so long and now is getting ready to kick that door in. I'm going to take the Hoosiers here as well. I just think this is the best coach team left. They've got the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. They're healthier in important areas we mentioned before. Jordan Davison, the freshman with 15 touchdowns, is out at running back for the Ducks. Noah Whittington is questionable tonight. They're pulling defensive players over there. We said they got to stay out of 3rd and long, and now they've lost a lot of the best ways to do so on that. I do agree with what Stormy said. I think this Indiana team is just seeing everything perfectly right now, and I think they see themselves through to that national championship matchup with Miami coming up here. Onward to the NFL we go. We've been talking about Wild Card Weekend all week long, the deep dives, thanks to our guests that have showed up here. Let's begin this one in chronological order as these are going to go. The Rams at the Panthers. Rams 10.5-point favorites on the road to the division-winning Carolina Panthers. I'm picking the Rams. I'd probably lay the points on this one and say Carolina can keep it within 10.5 just because this is the NFL, but I think the Rams revenge this one pretty easily. What about you?
I do as well. I think they control this game. I'm not going to give the 10.5, though. I think that's a little too much for the home Carolina Panthers. You talked about Ted McMillan and what a year he's having. I think he'll be a big part of this game. But the Rams, I think, are the better team. I don't think we'll see what we saw in the regular season game, and Rams move on.
All right, next up, we have got the Chicago Bears, home dogs to the visiting Green Bay Packers. 3rd time's the charm this season. We've seen how close these games are. Can the Bears get off to a fast start and win this one?
Well, I can't pick it because I'm calling it. But listen, this comes down to the Bears defense. That rank low of all the playoff teams. Can they get turnovers? They lead the league in turnovers. And can their running game get going? And can Green Bay, without Micah Parsons, get pressure and contain Caleb Williams in the pocket and don't let him get out of the pocket and make Superman plays? But can't pick it.
Bears rushing attack, Rome Odunze coming back, a Packers defense that, like we said, has lost its bite over the last 3 games without Micah Parsons. I'll take the Bears to keep the cardiac attack going right now, riding the turnover wave to a win in the postseason for Ben Johnson in year 1. All right, to a game that you can pick, and I think one of the most interesting ones of the weekend. Bills against the Jags. The Bills, as you see here, a road favorite in this one, going down to Duval for a Jacksonville team that I don't know if public perception is fully caught up to how good this football team is. So can Jacksonville shock the world and send Josh Allen, another one of the future Hall of Fame bound quarterbacks, home this postseason?
We've got a lot of road favorites in this. And Jacksonville, I think, is in a way kind of like Indiana. Do you really believe in them, right? Even though they make the playoffs, do you really believe in them, even though they are having a hell of a year? Trevor Lawrence having a great year. And the Bills, again, we keep talking about a fatal flaw of that run defense, which could end up, costing them. But I just have a sneaking suspicion the Bills are going to make a bit of a run in the AFC. So I'm going with the road Buffalo Bills, and I'll give the 1.5.
All right, and I'm going to take the Jags at home. I'm going to believe what our eyes have told us for the back half of this season in Jacksonville. They've been incredible, and I think they get it done here. San Fran at Philadelphia, no road or no home dog here. The Eagles 5.5-point favorite. I'm going to pick the Birds in this one, Dad. I just think all that talent, Lane Johnson healthy at the right time, him and Jalen Carter both out at practice against a beat-up San Francisco team that may finally run out of gas.
We keep talking about the running game for Philadelphia and how it hasn't been as good this year, but obviously they keep trying to. But I think their passing game, because San Francisco, the worst team in the league in sacking the quarterback and getting pressure on the quarterback, this passing attack for Philadelphia, even though people talk about how it's simplistic and all that with the route trees and everything, but still they have talented receivers in Smith and Brown and Goddard. So I think the passing attack could do well. And that Eagle defense, they obviously have to contain two people, Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. Those are the two keys to the offense. I'm going to go with Philly at home, though, in this one.
All right, we got like 15 seconds left, so just one word, Chargers and Patriots. Who wins?
I think the Patriots are going to win this game. Two kind of, tough coaches in Vrabel and Harbaugh, but I'll go with the Patriots.
I agree. Everyone, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy all the great football. We'll be back Monday to break it all down here on Golic Golic. Thanks for watching. For more Golic and Golic clips, make sure you subscribe to the FanDuel Sports Network YouTube channel.